All right, come to the front, everybody. Come on, get in here, get in close. Come on. David's requested. Everybody move forward. Let's.
Come to the front. I won't spit on you.
You know, at the start of the Evo, I came down, I felt very rock star, and then David Boyar has just sauntered down the aisle, ready to go with this one.
There's still seats at the front. Thank you for those who have come. It's embarrassing. Everyone's looking at you.
There we go. There I am. All right, I've been standing at the lectern all day. Now I get to come out and stand in the middle here. This is the fun part. This is where we really start to kick it off. We've just had the Evo session in this room. We've gone in. There was lots of ideas and thoughts.
How was that? Was that big?
It was big, but what was really the questions at the end? It was everybody starting to, piece together how they're going to be able to use it, and where it's going to go and what they're doing, and then I guess the tie-in now is we get to talk from the Change GPS side about a couple of subjects that we're pretty passionate about. Dave, you might say. Bit of passion about these ones.
A little bit of passion about these ones.
And how it sort of ties in with that bigger picture with how the Evo is going to work and how we all sort of come together as a suite of products. So with that, I think one thing that we haven't actually worked on, because I didn't think this part ahead, I've been emceeing, I haven't been presenting, is the slide deck. So Divya, as my partner in crime, can you grab me the clicker, please?
Well, I'll start talking anyway.
That'll be great. You start, I'll get the clicker sorted.
I want to say, well, you've got a good crowd here. Thanks for coming. I want to say a big thank you to all of the sponsors that we've got out here. And I want to give a particular shout out to these guys, My Mortgage Freedom, who have spent a fortune on branding their own soda water. Very cool. But I've said to them that I'll send them a lot of accounting firms to help their clients with mortgages and investment property stuff. But they're doing a settlement for me in 2 weeks. And if they stuff that up, they're not getting anything out of me. So I put a lot of pressure on them to perform.
That was a segue that I was not expecting.
I just felt like giving a shot. I think that's really cool swag. It's a bit warm out there. I think that's good on them. On the back.
But very much. I've been recording videos this afternoon of us coming down the back entrance very rockstar-like. I've got an update to the one I just posted. The way that you came down through the centre aisle with the, soda water was very rockstar.
It's vodka.
Was that a childhood dream? Did you just tick a box there?
Nah, let's get on with it, mate.
All right, let's go.
Slides.
Do you want me to lead off?
Yeah, you go.
All right, there we go. So, I guess, I talk to, probably close to 100 firms a month, thereabouts. It's a lot. And, come on over, Dave. And I guess when I go into these conversations, we have a general assumption of where we go. You have a way of working. Is it where you want to actually be? Do you see that is maybe not the best process? Or a common piece that I see is this, you're stuck in the process. We don't have time to sort of take a step, sort of circuit break our own like processes to fix it up and know that we can get to that better way. You're giving advice to your clients to do things differently, to do things better, to reprice better, to do that type of stuff, but you're not following that advice yourself. We've had a couple of sessions today, when in this room actually, where we've spoken about service level and being able to provide that to clients and making sure that, they're respecting the value that you're bringing to the table, but how you sort of broach that conversation. And there's very varied ways to go about it. And then it's the absolutely no time to develop systems. You're stuck in that rut. You're stuck in the day-to-day process. And there's some legal things that are coming more now that we have to look forward to, of the need to get stuck into that.
So we tried to challenge some of these assumptions to put this session together for everyone. I don't need the mineral water anymore. We assume that everyone's got a way of working, but not many people actually take the time and say, is this the way that I want to be working? Most firms run to a work schedule driven by two main things: the ATO compliance program, what's due when, and the limitations of your practice management and tax software as the way it was implemented whenever it was implemented. Very few firms do much more than that. And then those rules in the firm then get stress tested by client demands. And what the client's putting on you is something that might be urgent. Some firms will progress this a lot further and tweak it and become more advanced, but they're generally the limitations. Every firm has a service level that clients are used to. But I'll put a big asterisk there because the clients get used to the service that very often we stumbled into. We accidentally decided to service our clients this way, and very few other businesses stumble their way into a way they look after the people who pay their bills. Most people are very deliberate about it, and there's so many examples of this. The best example I can give is the experience of ordering an Uber trip. There has been so much smarts that have gone into at what touch point does the user have to make a decision? Do they need to engage with us? Do they pay us? Do they need to complain with us? If anyone has complained to Uber recently, you'll notice they've made that a lot harder to do. Oh, because I complain a lot to them. I'm back on driving. I'm back on taxis. The very few firms, because it's like, anyway, it's an extra $5 and they're there and they don't cancel. But very few of us actually say, what are the touch points that we do with our clients and how can we improve them? And in every other business, that would be called something like a client journey, customer experience. There's a huge body of work around customer experience or CX. It's something we think about a lot in the way we service our members at Change GPS, and it's the way Sean develops products for us in Change GPS. I'll introduce these gents on to my right in a moment. So we're going to challenge these ideas of things that have happened in firms, sometimes by accident. And also, this is probably going to be the most controversial thing. I think clients sometimes actually hate the way we service them. Sometimes they don't like it, and we just don't want to believe it because we're so busy, we're so rushed, we don't want to believe that maybe we need to improve on this because it takes so much time, and we don't always have it. You think about the most simple thing. Client calls up, they want to know what entity they should buy a car in, or whether they should HP, or whether they should put it on a lease. You know this answer. It takes you seconds to solve this for them because you know the technical answer already, you know the client's group structure already, you know what the answer is going to be. But that client can still stuff it up. They can still buy it in the wrong entity. They can still get the wrong financing agreement because they've forgotten what the advice was because they're not experts. The ultimate client experience for that would be that they got a piece of advice from you that said exactly what they needed to do. And now under these TASA rules, the new TASA rules require you to document all of your considerations in why you gave advice to clients and what that advice is going to be. Who's got the time to do that? And even if you have the time, who's got the systems in the practice to be able to do that? And how many partners are confident that their staff are going to do the right thing? We can't get staff to do the same work papers. How are we going to get them to do the same thing in providing common advice? And so these are the challenges that firms are starting to get themselves into. And we're going to talk about this in particular as it relates to moving from a compliance conversation to an advisory conversation. And for the purposes of today, we're mostly talking about what we consider compliance advisory. Because I think advising a client on what entity to buy a car in has an element of advice in it. It's not the lodgement of a tax return. It's not pure compliance. And it depending on how you structure it, it's not a revenue-generating activity for the tax office.
I think the key that I see with it is you're already doing this, but how many of you are actually getting paid for it, and how many of you are recognising the knowledge that goes into it is probably the biggest piece that I see. It's missed too often.
It is, and so the way of working develops in different ways. For many of us who came out of bigger firms and started to practice up by ourselves on a laptop with cloud-based software that was mostly free or that our clients were paying for, all we needed was a laptop, some cloud-based software and some professional indemnity insurance, mum and dad and a cousin's tax return, a public practicing certificate, bang, you're in practice. It's actually never been easier to start an accounting practice, but it's also never been as hard as to run one. It's a really weird situation that we're finding ourselves in because the small firms who started thinking this was going to be easy now have the same red tape to get through as a firm with 49 more staff. Treated exactly the same for regulation and red tape. So the way of working actually needs to be challenged. Now we have a way of service levels that clients are used to. One of the things we do in Change GPS is we challenge you to change the way you show your clients what your work is. And what I've heard today, I'm just wondering if, I can't see everyone, but who uses the Change GPS Progress app? A few people at the front, thank you very much. Thanks, boys. What this app does, and I'm not going to promote the app, but I want to explain what it does. Heather Dyke's here, everyone. Now, Heather Dyke was the first director when I was a graduate at Moore Stephens. So sorry, Heather, I'm going to tell the story. when we were preparing a set of accounts at Moore Stevens, I'd finish the work. This is mid-2000s. I'd finish the work. There's people here younger than this who aren't going to relate to this story. My goodness, Scott, I'm getting on. We would prepare the work and it would go to the secretaries for collation. The secretaries would collate and bind the work and the client would get a pack like that. Tax returns, trust resolutions that were never done before 30 June. On some occasion, well, because they are now. On some occasions, we had shelf companies. Does anyone know what a shelf company is? Yeah, don't tell anyone. And they'd get these huge packs. And then you always had a year-end meeting with the client. And they were kind of nice. The client comes into the boardroom, into our fancy office in the Melbourne CBD, and you talk to the client about what happened during the year. But to talk to them, you'd have to say things like, now, can you please go to page 8 of the financial statement? No, not that financial statements. The one, no, not that one, that one. Right? And this is the experience the client's getting while you're trying to explain something to them. Progress solves this. Progress takes all of that key information and it puts it into a report that explains to a client, here's what happened during the last year, here are urgent things we need to talk about, and here are the things we need to talk about to get you ready for next year. And it looks beautiful. Clients like it because it's written in plain English. But that challenges firms to do something very different. And it's not so much now that we've got clients coming in with big binded folders of things that they need to sign. I actually think now's worse because now they get digital signing packs that one, you miss the opportunity to talk to them about, and two, and most dangerously for every firm in Australia, they don't read. I know they don't read it because I didn't read my accounts when my accountant sent them to me. I was on the couch at 11 o'clock at night and I opened my Fuse sign file and I just went sign, sign, sign. That looks about right. Sign, sign, sign. And I guarantee you all the clients are doing it. Now I can do it because I'm an accountant. I understand what's going on in my accounts, but a lot of clients don't. This is a terrible client experience. And how on earth are they valuing you if the biggest thing that they pay you for is a sign, sign, sign thing that they do on their phone? It's actually the same experience. Oh, these shoes, they're brand new shoes. I got them for Access All Areas, pair of Reeboks. Black Friday, $100. Pretty good. Bought them online in 5 clicks. They were delivered in 4 hours. That's how little value I've got on this pair of shoes. And you're making it that easy to sign a tax return and a set of financial accounts. We need to change that client experience and introduce your own personalities and your own people into that. Because the client wants to meet with you. Every single person in here, if I give a standard set of financial accounts, you will all prepare the tax return to within 95% of the same answer. And if you don't, we're reporting you because we've got dobbing provisions.
From July 1.
Yeah. But you will, because you're technically all competent accountants. So the reason the client is going to choose you is because your personality is different to yours. And because you go for Fremantle and you go for West Coast. And the client's really passionate about hating West Coast. These are the reasons why people are going to choose their accountants. Now, sophisticated clients might have niches and expertise that they need. But somebody else has an expertise as well. They're going to choose you because of your personality and the experience that you give them. So we have to challenge the way that we've got this experience that we're giving clients for common work that we do. Because if we do that, if you have the conversation and the moments to engage and build rapport, now you can start talking about other advisory work that you want to do without disrupting the whole system, without worrying about training people up on new things. I'm sick of disruption. I love Evo that everybody saw today, not because it's disruptive, because it's going to sit in the things that I'm already doing and just make it a bit easier. And that's what we want to keep showing you today, Scott.
We're going through an integration process at the moment with software. And I've found that there's one little function in there that I have a lag time for a call connecting of 15 seconds. And it is a massive risk for our productivity, Dave, because I can get very distracted in 15 seconds.
I've seen.
Right?
Yes,
it is legitimate.
Sean's witnessed it. We're not happy about it, and we'll talk about it in the next executive team.
But this is that piece, right? Like this is where in the app, in the system that you're using, having that functionality takes away from it. I'm not going to have to go out and ask a question in somewhere else. I'm going to be able to just query it straight away. That's actually the use case of where this is going to be really positive. The time to develop systems is, we all know it, the time crunch. No matter what time of the year I speak to a firm, it is the busy time of the year for them.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Like how many people used to go on bigger holidays in July 5 years ago than they do now? It's okay. No, put your hand up. We know it because our call volumes, on average, you pick up 1 in 3 calls from us. We make about 1,000 calls a week.
Yeah. Yep.
So on average, on average, 333 conversations will be held. And in July, it doesn't drop anymore. And it used to, because we all used to go on holidays, and it's not happening, which is a bad thing for everybody's mental health. So how are we going to start changing the way we think about the client experience, and how are we going to do it without blowing everything up? Oh, this is so cool, the people at the back looking at those screens. Tim, any spelling mistakes on these yet? Yeah, same. Let's break it up. I'm not going to show you a new model. I'm going to map what I think you can do based on things that are already happening in the practice. So you're doing 3 things right now. You're doing compliance, you're getting something done, you're servicing a client, and you're educating the client. Every single firm in the country does it. You're actually probably not compliant with legally what you need to do without this. Let's think about what happens in clients. Number 1, you have to request information. You cannot do a job without requesting information, except for those glorious clients that just send it all in a neat package ahead of schedule. You know, the one that we all hope to get one day. Or they request information from you. Tim and I just did a talk just immediately before this one. The most common one, I'm about to get a lease on a car, I'm about to get a hire purchase, I urgently need my BAS lodged. Or I need a copy of my trust deed because I'm getting refinanced and the bank doesn't understand the trust works. Or my favourite one, I bet your favourite one as well, I need the accountant certificate signed. All of this stuff is coming into your practice in ad hoc manners, and and all of those things are moments that you're interacting with clients. The next one that's really common, and I've kind of had a go at this before, even though I think FuseSign's a great product and we use it, and I think it's awesome, but if we use it properly, we can abuse it, the client needs to sign something. Very little is considered finished in an accounting firm until a client signs it. Very, very little. That's a sign that the job's done, and then it's often just a matter of processing after that. And then the 4th and final thing in compliance is they're told to pay something, and this is when the client thinks the job's done, because they just want it off their table. They just want it off. I can tell you in the last 48 hours, I've got 4 emails from my accountants of things that I need to pay, and I just wrote to him, access all areas, why aren't you here? And I like giving him a hard time because he's not here. Very disappointing. The next touch points that you've got are stock standard client servicing moments in time that most firms will have. Annual meetings I've discussed a little bit as well. I think that, just a show of hands, how many people have dropped the number of year-end meetings they're doing, and perhaps because they're using digital signing? Are you doing less end-of-year meetings than you used to? It's about 40% of the room. To prove my point, it's probably actually 30. I think that's a bad thing. I think that we've automated too much and we've taken too much relationship out of the client experience. This is just my opinion. You might say, well, I've done it for a reason, and that reason will stack up. But it's going to be very hard to introduce an advisory offering to that client if you're reducing the quality conversations you're having with them. The next thing is phone calls directed to you.
Just on the annual meeting piece, that's your opportunity to actually coach and look at the piece forward. It's the ability to talk about what their aims are for the next year as well, so you can plant the seed that when you sell that property, we're going to then have to talk about CGT, and that's going to cost money. It's actually missing that opportunity to have the conversation, to coach the clients to talk to you before they do something stupid.
Then we get phone calls direct to you. I'm going to do another show of hands because I'm enjoying this. How many of you have clients who have your personal mobile phone number? And put your hand down if you've never had a call outside of work hours. Do you have your banker's personal mobile phone number? Well, now we know who's got real money. It's becoming harder and harder to get access to professionals. You ever booked a doctor's appointment recently? Harder and harder. I'm going to make it, it's not even professionals. You ever had a hairdresser appointment recently? You have to book in advance.
No.
Yeah. How am I showing off? Phone calls direct to staff. This is where you start to lose visibility of what's happening in the client relationship. Almost impossible to control. There's some new AI tools that are sitting in meetings and recording meetings, but you need to tell your client, well, you ought to tell your client that it's being recorded. I don't want to know that my conversation with my accountant's being recorded. In a lot of the Teams meetings that I'm in, they start with auto record. I say, please turn it off. If you've sat on our webinars, it should be obvious why. And then we have text platforms, and this is where client communication has gotten completely haywire. Why on earth would you take an instruction from a client on a Facebook message? And is that Facebook Messenger your personal profile as well? Why would you even let them see that? Who cares? I can tell you I've got 2 profiles on Facebook. I've got my personal one where my friends are connected with me, and I've got my business one where very few people are connected with me. But it helps me. It helps me. I'm in the Change GPS group, and it helps me do other things like that because I want to limit it, and I don't want to lose control. The final thing is client education. For years and years and years, client of education has been limited to budget update emails and newsletters, and not just budget update emails, crap budget update emails. Because Tim Stillwell, partner at Moore Stevens, used to stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning because we all took pride in getting the first budget email out. And we wanted to be first to understand the budget to clients. The problem is, and Tim says this line very often, does your small business client really care about changes to rules relating to foreign investments or income splitting or income stripping rules? Clients don't care about this, but we're sending this out to them. The only information we should be sending clients are about things that impact them. Let's go to the next slide. And this is what I reckon it can look like. This is how we go from all of those compliance experiences and start introducing advisory things. I'm being very careful to not say business advisory and to not say compliance advisory. I just want everybody in the room to recognise that the stuff you say is important and clients value it. So let's take something different, client education. And by the way, this is the biggest opportunity for improvement. Because if clients are educated in the services you can offer them, they're more likely to call you up and say, I want that service. But a lot of them don't know, and that's why you get upset when they have coaching expenses on their P&Ls, because you could have done a lot of the work of the real things that they wanted. So I want to send specific budget update. Me and Tim, when we do the budget update, we're not first, we're usually last. The budget webinars that we run are usually up to a week after the budget, because all the media, clients find out about the budget on the front page of the paper. And they find it out immediately on budget night, because all the media has been in the media room. So they don't need to know everything anymore. We've got digital communication. They need to know exactly what's relevant for them, Scott.
And then the risk with that, if you look at last year's budget, the media in the lead up to it was all of these big changes were scheduled. They were slated. Everything was going to be big changes, all these big risks, and everything was going to change. And then what happened? It didn't change. So the messaging and what our budget email was last year was very much just like walking it back to go, everything's okay. The media had actually blown it out of proportion. And then you had to come in and be the advisor to be like, we're all good here, team. Let's just keep rolling.
Relevant law changes, I think, are critical because it makes it look, clients feel like you have their back, particularly for firms that specialise in specialist services. I think firms that specialise in property do this really, really well because there are regular changes to property that are really important, particularly developers, and they need to know what these rules are because it can impact the feasibility of their developments. And I think that segment's always done that well. And then recently, new risks and tax administration changes. And I don't know if he's in the room. We said on a webinar, we suggested that we wanted to introduce a Tax Administration Services Act levy to charge more for the costs of the red tape of TASA. And we weren't sure about it because I don't think Tim was too sure if he wanted to do it in his practice, but I think it's a great idea because, mate, everyone charges me levies. Qantas gives me 4 different levies. Levies or levies? When it breaks. Oh, yeah,
Potato cake or potato scallop?
Everyone's charging them. So I met somebody today, came up to me, said, Dave, I tried to charge it for a client and it didn't work, and I patted him on the back because good on him for trying. He put a $150 TASA charge, he called it TASA charge, $150 on a $750 invoice. And I just think my thought was that too much. So I said to him, go back, add it as a percentage and call it a levy. Don't call it a charge because they're unlikely to dispute it. And he's going to have a crack and hopefully that goes well for him. Anyway, recent tax administration changes are really important because it impacts lodgements, it impacts your compliance work. Expert advice, Scott. Nothing? All right, I'll keep going. Engagement, the quality of engagement letters has improved a lot. I think Ignition did an excellent job educating the market. A few people here use Ignition. Anyone use Change GPS Engage? No. Scott.
Yeah, who was the nope? Jeez.
Oh, we'll come have a chat. Wait till you see what we're about to do with our product. Wow. I think everybody's better at this. You know, we used to hide under the banner that it was okay to just have one engagement letter and we didn't have to update it every year. But you're at a session where we're talking about client experience. There's no way that passes the pub test. It doesn't make sense that you'd only re-engage once a year. Every accountant gets together and talks about scope creep and how annoying it is. Well, update the engagement letter. But don't just update the engagement letter. Be specific. tell me exactly what I'm getting in my year-end accounts and tax returns. The template we've got in Change GPS has 13 points. That's it. It doesn't include 5,000 crypto transactions. It doesn't do finding the cost base for the property that you sold that was inherited to you and nobody has any idea what the cost base was.
The year-end tax tips and reminder email does talk about crypto so that they're prepared that if they do have crypto, they know they're going to have to pay for crypto tax calculator to sort it out.
And I want to get into it. I want a mandate. I want to say we should add this to the manifesto, Tim. Scope everything. Everything has to have a scope. One, because the risks of doing something out of scope that you're not engaged for are actually becoming reasonable, thanks to TAS rules that will come in after 1 July. But two, because clients need to understand what they're actually paying for and not paying for. And the final thing that I want to share before I introduce Seb Vechio onto the stage is we need to get into the mindset that we're going to productize all of our services. No longer are we the on-demand, whatever you want for $6,000 a year service provider. We have to stop this. Everything that you do is a product. Every service you provide can be described in a bite-sized chunk that can be scoped up and can be charged for separately. And I want to end this section on the final thing that I think is important here. When a client calls you up and tries to deceive you into giving them free tax advice over the phone, how are the kids? Good? Yeah. Dog's doing all right? Yeah, that's good. Hey, by the way, I think I'm just buying this investment property. Do you reckon I should set up a unit trust or a discretionary trust? And then you're stuck. This is the line, and I want everybody to just rehearse this line, please. It's going to change your lives. I'd love to help you with that. I'll send you an email outlining my terms and scope. That's it. It's so easy. It's not confrontational at all, and it's perfectly reasonable. And it's going to give you the space to think about what you're going to charge, and the client's going to thank you for writing that down, and the client's actually going to understand what's included in the scope. Once you've got these moments, you can now move into business advisory because you've changed the way you're servicing the client, you've embedded more conversations into your client relationships, and you can start talking about the things that you want to do that make you feel energized as an accountant. All right, please everybody, give a big round of applause. You like that, Seb? Big round of applause for Seb Vechio, everybody. Now, some people might know Seb. He's active on social media, and I want to tell Seb's story, and Seb, you tell me if this is right or wrong. You signed up to Change GPS, and then you got rid of it because you said it was too hard. Can you use it?
I thought it was too dear and I wasn't using it properly.
So you left. Happens to many firms. Now, can you just tell a little bit, what sort of firm did you have?
It was heavily compliance. I bought my practice from a person who was retiring. Their staff was also past retirement age, but I thought I was going to get a few years out of them, but 3 months in, they all retired, didn't they? So here I am trying to bring to account a modern practice using paper-based.
How old were you?
How old was I? 2014, 13 years ago, so 43.
Right.
So you were 30 years their junior and trying to modernise the system.
Yes.
Got it?
I don't think they've heard of PDFs, put it that way.
Yep.
So it's all paper.
Now, you ended up coming back to Change GPS.
Yes. So actually, it was during COVID because I thought you guys were doing a great job, and when the lockdowns, well, they finished earlier in Queensland, when they sort of finished, I thought I owed you guys something, so I actually subscribed based on that. But then it was the old adage that I didn't have enough time to implement anything. So we implemented a few things, a bit of tax planning, the work papers, because the work papers are brilliant. But then we sort of didn't really use too much of it, and Tracy was the taskmaster, my wife, so every February we go through what our subscriptions are and, drew a line through the ones we weren't using, and GPS was one of them. It only took about a month or so to realise, oh God, we actually did use it quite a lot. And then we made a conscious decision with the whole team to implement as much as we can with all the stuff, fringe benefits, tax returns, tax planning, your distribution minutes, all the rest of it. Anything that came out, we tried to follow it as much as we could.
During that period, did you increase the number of touch points and conversations you're having with clients?
Yes.
So that's more time for you.
Yes. And look, I'll go back to, you were talking about digital signing, how that's got rid of some of the personal touches, and yes, it has. I actually think the worst client experiences I had is trying to get them to do client portal. Everyone hated doing the client portal. So digital signing actually helped with that bit, but we still actually got people into the office and actually had a chat with them. I'd have a big 75-inch TV on the wall, had their financials up. But first of all, I'd actually had those, that, I can't remember what it's called in GPS, with all the service offerings.
Service plan.
Service plan, yeah, there you go, it's in the name. I had that up on the screen first, and there's red, there's green, there's blue. So red, they're not taking it, taking the service. Green, they are taking it, and blue, there's something they can offer. First question is, what's all that? Well, these are all the services that I offer. Well, that blew their mind. They didn't know that, they just thought I did tax returns. So all of a sudden there's all these service items there. So we got rid of that screen, then the financials come up, and then we discuss it that way. That was invaluable. And also fringe benefits tax return. We're already doing the damn things in the financial statements with the, the employee contributions. Just did that. We're already doing the damn thing, but not charging for it.
You were doing the employee contribution, you were working out the FBT, so you're calculating the benefits, calculating the value, journaling it away, so solving the problem, and you were doing that as part of the year-end job fee.
And no one really knew we were doing it. They just thought we were just keeping him out of jail. That's basically it. And so we decided, well, let's try it. Let's do the FBT thing. So there was a bit of resistance at the start. I wouldn't have thought it was that much resistance. They just, we've got to do it. Because the benefit was it was capping it at 2 years as long as you were doing it reasonably well. But then we thought, well, how can we make that more efficient? So we had a bookkeeping arm to the business as well, and my wife was the head bookkeeper. So I trained them the way I wanted things done. So they actually were able to do all the journals for the cars, for interest, for the schedules, if it's a shuttle mortgage and all the rest of it. So by the time it came to us, I was 100% confident in what was in that stuff. And so when it came to FBT, it was more or less done. We just brought it through to the Excel program, and from there straight into the tax return. It was like, 10, 15 minutes, and charged $550 for it, because it was done, basically done. And before, it was just part of the annual service.
It was $550 for work they were already doing.
They were already doing it.
You were already doing it.
And we weren't charging for it.
Yeah.
And what you were saying before about the calls, these people, you've been dealing with them for 20 years, so you know their kids, you know what sport they're playing and all the rest of it. And all of a sudden, I'm going to start this business. Oh, okay. What entity do you think I should... So before they even get it out of their mouth, you're already giving them the answer. And I'm thinking, well, there's 20, 30 years of experience I've just given away.
I have that conversation with firms every day.
Yes.
And I've narrowed it down to a few. You're in the middle of something and you don't have the time. You're just trying to get them off the phone. You don't feel comfortable in saying you've got to pay for something because you're giving a quick email with an overview, a few dot points, and you don't see the value in that, or you don't have the ability, like you're wrapping it up in the pricing to set it up. You've got the knowledge to be able to give the advice.
Well, our way around that was that you couldn't ring and get me straight away. That was stopped at the reception area, take a name and message, and I would call within a few hours when I was right. Because I think the worst thing you can do is when you're doing a job is to stop it to answer the phone. You're getting paid to do this job, so focus on this job rather than, here's a potential sale. Work on the one that you're doing. So I stopped that, and then I rang back, and then it was, I want to do blah, blah, blah. Oh, look, that's not a 2-minute conversation. Here, I'll send you out some information and then arrange an interview.
I want to talk about what happened because you did this. And this is a huge challenge for you. You're a small firm on the edge of Noosa. I've put on the screen that you've retired, but I'm looking at your shirt and thinking I didn't have to waste the text. It's very obvious.
No, this is a mental health shirt.
This is a conversation starter.
Yeah,
Conversation
TX.
starter.
They do They
That's
do amazing
fantastic.
work in the men's health space.
What's their website?
It's TIAC, so TIACS. So this is a conversation starter. It started in the construction space around getting tradies to wear high vis, loud shirts. As a conversation starter. So
how did you come to retire? What happened?
Well, I guess, I've been in practice since 1992 and, had a number of times where I could have just moved to another existence. But I sort of pulled through that, so a lot of health issues. And then we started getting back on track, and then it was another near-death experience. And when you have a near-death experience, it really does change your outlook. You'd introduce a no-dickhead policy. That was one of the first things. Got rid of some of the rubbish. It's not easy. My wife wasn't on board at the time because, you're cutting loose thousands and thousands of dollars. But in the end, it's almost liberating, but it's also your staff. They're generally the ones that you've cut. The staff are having issues with them anyway. And they don't have to deal with them anymore. And then you can focus on the good clients, the ones that you don't remember because you remember the abusive ones. You remember them all the time, but not the really good ones. You can focus on them and give them a better service. And then we just found, every time they'd actually then got to the position where they'd call us first about some sort of opinion or what they should do. We sit down and meet with them and all the rest of it. Whereas before, they used to just go off and do it, and then it was up to you to try and fix the mess.
Also, because you'd started charging for things that you were giving away for free, turning it into an advisory practice, what was the result of that?
Well, the result was we got rid of a number of clients, so that freed up capacity. And then we just started charging more, so our profit actually went up. Our sales were probably about the same, maybe a bit more, but because we were actually charging appropriately to the clients that we had more time, we could service them much better. I started off, I decided I wanted to pare back a little bit, so I sat down with the staff. I only want to work 4 days a week, so we worked out how we can do that. Then that happened very quickly. By the time we worked out my day, we worked out what I did in a day, it ended up being 50% at least admin. It just worked out I was doing 50% of my day was doing admin, so that got palmed off. Then they went through the rest of the list. Well, of the 50%, I only needed to do half of that list because that could have been palmed off for somebody else. So then I trained the next in charge to do the 25% that I was doing. And that didn't take long at all either. So then all of a sudden I went back to 3 days a week. And then Tracy and I then decided to do some travelling, and we just got the travel bug, and we decided, we've done this long enough. I think it's time to move on.
And is it fair to say that because the profit had gone up, the price was right on the practice? So
Yes.
that gave you enough capital to get enough income to do the travel?
Yes.
I think that's amazing.
It's,
well done, Seb.
We're off in May around Australia. And if you put in the systems, the business basically sells itself. I had all the systems out in place, even to the extent 1 year, every year, January, February, we'd never had any money. There was always a shortage of money. And then 1 year we actually had money. And so in probably April or May, me and Tracy sat down and worked out why this year we had cash and the previous years we didn't. And we worked out that when we did clients that are in their 60s, 70s, or clients that didn't have kids, paid their bills straight away. So we always organised them to be done in December, January, February, and that money just kept on going through.
Awesome.
And that makes a big difference.
That's really clever. Well, thanks very much, Seb. Please, everyone. Thanks, Seb. Does everyone know who Sean Bernard is? Nah, because we keep him behind the scenes. He's the secret squirrel.
I said good morning to everyone when I was doing the registration, so you might have seen me there.
Sean is the head of engineering at Change GPS, head of product and engineering. And are we able to do a demo here? Is that what we're going to try to do? You're all set up for that on the clicker?
We'll see how we go.
Okay, we'll see how we go.
He's operating the clicker much quicker than what I did, so we're off to a good start.
You're a few behind.
There's a lot of people in the room who are Change GPS members. And I see all of the feedback that you give us about the product. And I read it all and I know it. And you might notice that we don't always make the changes that you'd like us to make. We're respectful. I want to acknowledge it, but here's why. Tim started Change GPS 14 years ago now. And over those 14 years, we've been building and enhancing and we keep adding to the product. Imagine that the code base of Change GPS is a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet with 750,000 lines and all of the variables are hard-coded. That's what we had. So 3 years ago, I worked out if we were going to make any of these changes that everybody wanted and were so obvious, then we were going to have to make a big investment. 3 years later, and almost $3 million later, we are now ready to release V2 of Change GPS. And we're going to give you a sneak peek of what that looks like today. When I say ready, February.
March.
Yeah.
2025?
But that's because we're putting the Evo button in it.
Exactly.
Change GPS V2 helps us in the back end because it means that we can rapidly develop more features much quicker than we were able to in the past. But what we also decided to do was fix some of the grinding UI issues. I've been talking about client experience today. Now I'm going to apply that same blowtorch onto me. There are things that drive people nuts in Change GPS, not because we did it deliberately, but because the thing grew and it changed over time. And as we go through that as well, we had a huge opportunity when we joined Access Group to really uplift the user interface of Change GPS. You saw with Evo that the benefit that we're trying to do is say, use this to access all of your data across your practice. And we're trying to standardize workflows and make it the same. So we started having a look at what Change GPS would look like if we use the same user interface that you'll see in Access Tax or some of the cloud-based Access products. And I'm very excited to share, Sean. We're going to share some of that today. I reckon that's a round of applause. It's $3 million we just spent.
I think on that, Dave and I were at an event together last year, and we were talking to another software provider, and they just said how they'd been doing some stuff, and they just spent $1 million on a project, and we were blown away at the time that there'd be $1 million worth of back-end architecture done, and then when we sort of went through and you start to calculate the value and stuff, we go like, wow, we were impressed at 1, like we're at 3.
All right, take a short shot.
All right, so for anyone who was in the previous session with Evo, anyone with an eagle eye would have seen that there was actually a sneak peek beforehand. So this is the new interface. So you'll see that it does look a little bit different. We have adopted the Access Group design system, which means that we've created a series of components that makes things consistent throughout our entire platform. So through using the different products that we already have, you'll see that there's a different experience at different times to create an advice report.
There are 6 different ways to create an advice report and Change GPS. So if I'm trying to introduce you to price your services and get the time back, I'm not really doing myself a good service if I'm saying there's different ways to do the same thing.
And this is what we've optimized. So for example, this is dividend statements. It's clean, it's nicer. You can see where to put the information. Another one, this is progress. While it looks similar to what is already there, again, it's consistent. It's optimized for efficiency. This didn't work. There we go. And now we've got a cleaner list of files that you've created, saved files. In this example, it's Blueprint. And you can go in, edit them. You can see a status that they're in, whether they're drafted or completed, whether or not they've been signed or sent. And this particular example, what we've done is tried to optimize the way that you can access resources. So right now you have to try and dig a little bit, go down a file tree, try and find the file that you're looking for. What we're doing is contextualizing that into the product so that you don't have to navigate away, it's there for what you're looking for. So you can click on the resources button and it opens out what we're calling the drawer. So it slides out from the side and you can see the list of resources that are contextualized to that product and then open them.
Can I ask a massive favour, because there's about 100 people in here? Come chat to us afterwards. Thank you.
And this is the reimagining of Blueprint. Lots of people have used Blueprint. I know Scott is constantly talking to me about Blueprint, and that's where the Healer family examples was born out of.
100%. And I'd like to say, everybody who's requested things or asked me how these things go, that question or conversation goes directly to Sean, which goes directly into the planning document for V2.
So the diagrams now that are generated, they're much cleaner. They're much more professional looking. And I'll just show like a little quick demo here where you can create a new entity into the diagram that's already there. So adding a trustee. Then you can enter in a name, you can customize colors, you can change the entity size as well, and add additional notes. So similar functionality to what you'd be used to now, but a much more intuitive way to then create it. I made this one a little bit too slow. So as the entity is created, you can then move them around as you do now, and then join where they exist within the relationships of the overall group. So as you'll see, it'll join the two together, and then you can edit the details as well. You can view them on the screen by maximizing an entity.
Having this ability is where we're going to get, you know, that personalization and really like data enrich the blueprint for people. So when you can go into something like the trust and actually start to list out like key information and be able to change the size of the icon so you can display more of it, that's where we're going to be able to really add that value in for the clients and pull it together. I had a lot of suggestions and ideas for this, and there's not too many that I've been able to come back and go, but what about this? Because Sean's been a step ahead of us on all of these.
So here's why we've done this. The user interface looks cleaner, it looks the same. So many firms have partners that want to do this and struggle to get staff to start using it because they need to learn multiple ways of doing the same thing. We've solved that. In Blueprint, you're now able to include much more information inside the Blueprint. You're able to export it in a much cleaner format that looks more familiar. In trust distributions, in tax planning, in all of those apps where you need to go in and find documents in resources, maybe on a second screen, you're now going to be able to get them immediately through the drawer that props out the side to reduce the amount of time it takes to do some of the compliance advisory work you're doing in Change GPS. Now, the one that I'm probably most excited about and most excited to share, we aren't able to show it today because we're still trying to put the final touches on it. I think the way we've serviced clients has fundamentally changed because whilst I said it's a bit of a disappointment that we don't have clients coming in doing those annual meetings anymore, some of them still happen digitally and they're happening over Microsoft Teams and Zoom, and you're still having those touch points with the clients. The challenge that we've always had in Change GPS, and pretty much everything that accountants do, is we produce Word documents and PDF documents. And Word docs and PDF docs are really uncomfortable when you're on a meeting with somebody and it's an important meeting and that person's scrolling up and down through that Word doc trying to find the point that they're trying to make to present to you. It's a bit dizzying, sometimes you lose the momentum, and if you're trying to get the client to say yes to something, sometimes it becomes a bit disjointed. Every single advice report app in Change GPS is going to have a presenter mode client view. Every single document will be turned into a web page, and you'll be able to share your screen and click through the sections of the document and take your client through whatever the automated advice report is that you want to share. It's going to completely change the way you experience your clients and increase your clients' understanding of the advice documents that you're able to share. Once that's done, once we've built this whole new backend, which is not a huge amount that you get to see as an end user, we've built some of this stuff in, that huge backlog of features that everyone asks us about, we start to punch them out very, very quickly. We've got about 15 developers that work at Change GPS, well, 17 at the moment.
17.
All of them are working on this. After March, they're all going to start working on all of those features that you've been asking for so many years and all of the crazy ideas that Tim has that he wants to get into Change GPS. And dare I say it for those who have been Change GPS members for long enough, SMSF for progress.
Oh, I didn't know where you were going with that one. I got scared for a second there. I'm vote number 2 for SMSF for progress as well. Progress Pro.
So what we've covered today has been a bit. Now, I wanted to make it 3 distinct separate sessions because what we've covered is some challenges that we need to make to ourselves to change the way we're servicing our clients. I hope that people found inspiration in Seb's story. And please, a round of applause for Seb for coming and sharing the story with us today. He didn't have to do it. And then finally, the investments we're making in the Change GPS product to make it easier for you and for you to get more time in delivering advice reports out to your clients. Thank you very much, everybody. We've had a great time here today.
And now I get to the bit. I've been up on this stage all day today. Now I go back into my MC hat. So can we get a round of applause for my fellow speakers on this session and V2? Come on, guys, let's wrap it up. Come on. All right. Now, as Semisonic once said, which I think is very on trend with this, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here, which means we need to get out of here so the AV guys can set up, the band can get their sound check done, but it's raining outside. The rain has set in, so we're going to go out. We're going to get a D&T cocktail from the bar.
What's a D&T cocktail, Scott?
You know what? That's a very interesting one. I didn't actually get the brief on what it was.
I know what it is.
David, what is a D&T cocktail?
When you walk out, all of those tables are filled with D&T cocktails. They're the Dave and Tim's. They're actually gin and tonics. So go out, start having a good time, start relaxing, and start chatting to all the people that you've met today.
The DJ will get fired up. That'll go. Canapes will be served. And then the after party, the band will kick up back in here. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you outside.